Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in Florida, appearing at an event with far-right influencer Ben Shapiro. The event was a fundraiser for PragerU, that is a U.S. conservative nonprofit. Smith has faced calls from the Alberta NDP, the opposition, to cancel the trip. They accuse Smith of raising money for extremist Islamophobic organization. Smith said the opposition New Democrats are being defensive because they've done nothing to push back against U.S. tariffs. So two very different points of view coming out of Alberta. Let's get some analysis with Rob Breakenridge, a columnist for the Calgary Herald. He joins us from the CBC Calgary studio. Help us understand what's going on here. Danielle Smith continuing to defend her decision, Rob, to attend this fundraiser. What's your sense of what she's doing here?
Well, it's a few different angles, and I think at essence what Danielle Smith would argue she's doing is similar to what Doug Ford and others have been doing, is trying to connect with Americans, trying to explain Canada's case maybe in a way that Republicans or Conservatives can understand and maybe win some of them over to our side. I think that's been the essence of the mission, and early on I think, you know, the leadership kind of fell to the premiers with Justin Trudeau sort of AWOL. But as it's progressed, and maybe these efforts haven't borne a lot of fruit, and Danielle Smith getting herself into a bit of trouble recently with some comments suggesting that she was asking the administration to try to help the Conservatives here, or linking Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump politically, that's where it's become a little more dicey for her, I think.
So it won't be surprising for people to hear that the NDP is not happy with this. As I mentioned, they're the official opposition in Alberta, but the UCP, Danielle Smith's party, has been in power for a while. They have done very well at the polls. Among conservative Albertans, how do you sense her trips, and particularly this trip to Florida, is playing?
Well, I think the idea that she's fighting for Alberta, whether that's lobbying American Republicans or Conservatives, or fighting against Justin Trudeau or Mark Carney, that certainly plays well with her base. And that's a big part of her political brand, is that she's fighting for Alberta. Now, in this instance, I think she's trying to argue that she's fighting for Alberta and Canada. And maybe that's where not everybody's so sure. Is she sort of on her own here, on her own page, not on Team Canada, in terms of being aligned with the other premiers? So that's where I think she's run into a bit of trouble here. There's some question about who she's sharing a stage with tonight. Ultimately, what matters is the message she brings. I think the problem is this is at an undisclosed location. No media are allowed. It's not even clear if or when this whole event is going to be posted for, as the Premier's office suggested, tens of millions of people to see. So what exactly is going on here tonight, and what is the message Danielle's bringing?
Yeah, and so what do you think? You're a columnist, you have latitude to interpret this. What do you think her goal is here? What does success look like for her?
Well, I think it's in different ways. I mean, part of it is raising her own profile, and that's part of the agenda here. I think part of it is showing her base, showing Albertans that she's trying to fight for Alberta. And I think that also speaks to a lot of the rhetoric she's been lobbing toward Mark Carney, making demands and warning about a possible national unity crisis if that doesn't happen, which again is maybe out of step with sort of this whole notion of let's rally around the flag, rally around the nation. And I think part of it too is maybe in a little more narrow sense, let's try to protect Alberta's oil and gas sector here. And that's been a lot of her focus in trying to lobby against tariffs, is to talk about that relationship on the energy side. But what about all of these other industries? I mean, is Danielle Smith, for example, going to make the case for Canada's auto sector tonight? Is she even really interested or equipped to speak to that? So I think part of it is her own agenda. Part of it is an Alberta-specific agenda. But I think at the same time, too, maybe showing that Conservatives can make a difference here, and having conversations with Conservatives on the other side of the border. Maybe that's where they have an advantage, and perhaps that's also what she's trying to demonstrate here.
We have less than a minute, but I am curious about this. We heard from our polling analyst earlier in the show that despite the Liberal surge across the country, Saskatchewan and Alberta remain very firmly in the Conservative column. Is that your sense as well, that the Conservatives can still rely on overwhelming support in your province of Alberta?
Well, it's not quite as firm a grip as it was when Justin Trudeau was still there. And it sounds like even in Alberta here, there could be a handful of seats up for grabs, but it's still pretty solidly Conservative. The question is, as Danielle Smith has said some things that have maybe hurt the Conservative campaign, what is her preferred outcome here? She'll be publicly supporting the Conservatives, but having Justin Trudeau or having a Liberal government has served as a very effective political foil for UCP governments here in Alberta, and things change dramatically in Alberta politics if we see that change federally. So that's another interesting dynamic here.
Nice to get your insight into what's happening in Alberta. Rob, thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Ian. Thanks.